And what I'm going to do here is just kind of keep on scrolling down. Okay, so this is the beginning basically. This is a slide that really these four logos on the bottom are the major projects that we have going on right now. So I'm not sure what your research is about and which direction, but what you might remember about tactical tech from 15 years ago, it had this approach. It was before security in a box, and it was during this time where it's much more around like I would say like focused towards civic sector and kind of a niche in a way. And with time, this space got filled up, and so they started looking on like more public facing public awareness kind of activities. So I'll get into each one of these. I think the only thing to note here is that we have two new projects that are not included in this list, but I'll get into that in a second. Let's see. Oh, this is mainly the glass room, actually. Okay, so let me just talk about those other projects really quick. So basically, exposing the invisible is really a meeting point for investigators and journalists and activists around the world who are working and gathering all kinds of methodology and online tools for citizen investigations. So, for example, we're really happy that we found out like last month or so that some people who joined the camps when there were still camps in the physical world ended up doing with someone they met in one of the camps with tactical tech. They got together and they did research and investigated the camps in Xinjiang province with the Uyghurs in China, and then ended up getting a Pulitzer Prize. So we're really happy about that. We like to talk about that. So I mean, it's good stuff. But like, what I want to say is, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of really really cool people, and you just missed like the first actual exposing the invisible conference that took place last week. But a lot of these things are going to be online. You can get on the website and see it. And see the speakers. I mean, a lot of really cool people, and it's in that direction, right? So this is more of like kind of this niche kind of target audience who are working on some really serious stuff. It's all great. And the website Exposing the Invisible has a lot of this stuff online, the methodologies, everything. You can actually get a sense from there. Another one that's also a little bit niche is data and politics. And basically this has been like 3 or 4 years of research and collaborative work with I think 14 or 15 different countries, or people in those countries, working on basically the business of influence, as we call it. But it's basically a lot of tech that's related to electoral campaigns, right? So obviously the Cambridge Analytica is one thing that came out after even this research started. So it positioned tactical tech in a way that like we kind of looked ahead, and we're well placed to be talking about this. So this is my colleagues Varun and Amber and Gary, and this project is still ongoing. So this is also some like 4-year long project, had this massive like book that came out, I guess, a kit, but then it got even smaller and summarized, and you can check that out as well. I mean, it goes into the details of like what is done and what methods are used by these huge corporations now, because it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, to influence basically elections around the world. So really good stuff there. And then so more of the critical thinking kind of public facing is the glass room, and hand in hand it goes with the data detox kit. And so the glass room basically is this well, it started as this large exhibition. And maybe I can start showing pictures here. So yeah, definitely focus on critical thinking and digital literacy. And it started in actually Berlin. I don't know if you were here in 2016, Felipe, but there was this, you weren't, okay, there was this really cool exhibition in HKW, the House of Kultur and Welt, where it was called Nervous Systems. And a part of that was what was called the White Room. And this is a picture you see in front of you. And this is the beginnings of the glass room. And the whole idea here is basically the idea is to demystify technology by bringing in new and creative different formats, some interactive, and there's a program involved, there's workshops, there's speakers. And the idea is just to start the conversation basically with the general public, people who might have been really turned off from the technical jargon when people start talking about privacy and data and these topics, and to get people thinking a little bit more critically about the tech that we're all using in our everyday lives, right? So this space has definitely grown as well in the meantime, with all kinds of different offline activities. But in a way, like looking around, working now in the glass room now for 2 years, in Berlin as well. I see that this is a really unique format that resonates with the public in a very kind of special way because of the kind of approach they take, because it's more provoking the questions as opposed to being didactic, just kind of giving them a one way, this is how it is. Yeah. And then, so there's here some more images. So we went to London after this. It was actually in this Berlin time, basically, that Mozilla people happened to be around, and they're like, wait, this is new, this is cool. Like, we want to help you do this again. What do you think if we take this to London, for example? So went to actually London, New York, and San Francisco in 2019, and then of course Corona. And the whole idea here was actually, you talk to Marek, our creative director, and he mentions like this idea of like culture jamming. So instead of going up on like a billboard and painting over an advertisement, this was also an occupation of physical space, but now more of in a 3D sense. And basically, he was trying to mimic a tech store, so that people walking in off the street, they kind of check it out and they're like, "Wait, this is not for sale. Wait, there's artificial intelligence that's flawed in this way, there's I don't know what over here." So yeah, so this was the idea of the culture jamming aspect, which worked out great. This is the latest pictures in San Francisco. It got pretty popular in London, and definitely in San Francisco. I think we had 20,000 visitors in 18 days. So it was full on. Yeah, it was. And this was for us, we were like, we had press partners and we're like, could have done, I mean, a lot more, but like, we were really happy because even though we were going to San Francisco, basically in the end, we're going to Silicon Valley. So it had that kind of approach. We also do want to reach basically the general public. But I mean, it was a trip, when like an Apple, 20-year-old Apple veteran walks in, and he's like, I've been working on facial recognition for how long? And I had no idea of what you're talking about here, and that my work leads to this, right? So this is the kind of stuff, that we're trying to do here. So just like an example of some of the work. So this guy, Aaron Bartel, is also based here in Berlin. He took, for example, the LinkedIn data leak with a bunch of passwords. He put them all in order alphabetically in like this encyclopedia kind of format. And basically people go in there and you can see there's like a line usually of people and they're trying to find their password. And more than not, like at least like 6 out of 10 people actually find their password. I checked it and I was like, maybe my old password was like 1 character off. Before password managers and all of this. So this is like one of the formats, one of the creative formats that's like, it's about the technical world, it's about the cyber world, it's about like, a hack, but we're doing this in a physical sense. And I think this is one of the things that resonates with people, right? That the format we're using, the fact that we're talking about the online world in an offline space, all of this has like this kind of impact. And then here's another example, this guy, Adam Harvey, he's from the US. Yeah, I think he bought a publicly sold data set of avatars or profile pictures, and he put it into a really simple AI kind of setup where basically there's a webcam looking at you, and it compares real time to everyone in the set and brings what it thinks is the closest to your face. And in the end, you can't see it in the picture, but behind the gentleman standing there, you press a button and it prints out a receipt and gives you a grade: A, B, C, or D. D is danger. A is like you're in good shape. And it's not about really the scaring, right? It's not about that. But I mean, in a way, it's like the idea that, a lot of these companies and are selling information that's been scraped from YouTube, Flickr, Facebook, putting this in its own AI setup and basically making money off of this beyond our knowledge, right? So this idea, we're presenting this idea of data brokers basically in this format. So again, we want to get to the data brokers. We want to talk about like all this, like all these companies making money off without people's consent, but we're doing it in this format, right? This one is called Dries de Porter. So actually, you're here, man. If you want to see a glass room, there's one, so not here, but in the Netherlands, which is not so far away, and it's a lot closer than San Francisco. This is going to be at this scale, right? These are the larger glass rooms that take up place not very often at all. So the next one is in this place called Leovarden, which is in the northwest of Netherlands. That's in August, and it's for a few weeks. But then there's another one in Amsterdam at the main national kind of, I don't know if it's national library, it's called OBA, but it's like a huge venue, which is very cool structure, in the middle of Amsterdam. And that's going to be in November. So you have two chances, because after that goes to Adelaide, and who knows what happens next year, right? And that's really, it's further than San Francisco. But this one here is Dries, and Dries is actually Dutch. So this one will be showing in Australia. It's really fun because you go in there and you put in coins, and it actually gives you, so literally like a dollar or a euro or whatever, and it gives you likes in your Instagram and followers and no. And it plays on this like idea of addiction, so quick fix, right? The hilarious part is that he's got a program. I mean, those are bots, what we're trying to do is, one second, close this program. So basically, yeah, this will be also showing, we have all kinds of different ones. I'm not going to go so much into all the different pieces, but I mean, it's cool. This is like an old one, Google Empire. So we look at like the hegemony of these major companies, but we present it again in a different way. So this is like with strings, but like later on, the community version I'll show is like people actually connected the dots. So this idea of like having people interactive pieces during the exhibition. Yeah, so like this quote, right? So basically, here's another one, and the way we approach different things. So this one over here is about basically terms and conditions of all the apps that we use, and how we just press agree all the time without even remotely thinking about reading the twin. So what we've done is we've gone in there, researched the like most damning quotes, and we like highlighted so that and it's kind of a timeline. So you wake up in the morning, you go to this app, and lunchtime you do this or that, and every single one of those apps people are aware of, and like you read this stuff and it's like, oh my god, it's crazy. And what we've done is actually we've taken like the most common in London, the most common in San Francisco, and now we're kind of even opening it up for everyone to do it in their location. And then we have this thing called the data detox bar, which is hosted by Ingeniuses, and again, it's a play off of like the tech store. And there's where you can pick up one of your data detox kits, right? So the data detox kit basically is a tips and tricks of basically what to do to lower your exposure online. So you're talking about like, how to change your location settings on both Android and iOS, or password managers, or a whole bunch of other stuff. So it's really great because people come to the exhibition and they're like, wow, this is interesting, but what do I do now? You kind of freak me out. Well, we give them this, and it's actually some kind of tangible action that they can take. So I'm going to skip over this stuff, and I'm going to get to kind of, here's one of the images of the community edition. So this has gone around like more than 250 times in the last 3 years, to like, I don't know, 50 countries. I don't know, we're counting, so it's kind of like over 230,000 people have seen this so far. And yeah, and so basically at one point people were like, these big ones are great, but they're really expensive. You got Mozilla, what else can we do? I mean, we want to bring this stuff to our location. So we designed something that's low cost, that people can do. We can easily ship it. We don't have to be there. And that's when the IoT edition came out in 2018, and it looked at smart devices, looked at privacy, etc. In 2020, we started this one, the misinformation edition. So the image there is from Microwave Festival in Hong Kong. And basically it, goes through a lot of the different ideas. It was basically split up into 3 different main ideas, looked at misinformation, looked at deep fakes, and it looked at tech addiction. So, here's like a visualization. It's supposed to be like 75 centimeters across, 150 centimeters length. So it's this large poster, one of many that goes side by side next to some tablets. And yeah, and it's let's see if I can even zoom in here. And it talks about like things, basically how your phone is designed to grab your attention, and all of the different tricks, design tricks that are used by companies. And it really kind of just summarizes it and puts like boom right in front of you. And so people are like, okay, now I'm beginning to get it much more right when it's all next to each other. Uh, so keep on going.
What was the last one? Said there's the misinformation, deep fakes, and what was the last one?
It was this what tech dependency or addiction to your devices. So we look at this. This went really well with last year's kind of new chapter on the data detox kit, which is well-being. And so we started including this a whole lot more into our materials. Again, as this like kind of like, this concept of even well-being, like, do we even, I mean, are we aware of our addictions or any negative impact of technology because of our use? And everybody's use at this rate is increasing. Are we even aware that this is happening? So we have like all these tips and tricks, and it kind of relates to this, right? To this, well, I'll show you in a few seconds some other pieces like this one here. So we worked with these people in Politecnico University in Milan, and they're doing a lot of research. And one group, density design, was all matched up really with the glass room. We collaborated with them, and we came up with this was a Chinese student who went back home, and she started doing a survey basically on her friends and family, and she came up with this visualization about the usage of their apps on their mobile phone. So it's really interesting. It's like a snapshot of a tiny demographic, but in the end it's not really about like representing the population. I'll just give you a quick idea about it. So basically one of these so these are the categories that she made around the different kinds of apps used. Here is the amount of time they're spending on it, but here are the veins or the capillaries or whatever. The density of it is how much in one direction it's being used. And then she's got it separated into age groups. As you can see, she's pretty young. Over 46 is like the end of the end. So the idea here is really to like highlight, the different age groups, who's using it more, and then which age groups are using, in which direction. So for example, over 46, you see a lot on the creative side, a lot on the productivity side, but not so much on the social side, for example. Whereas of course, in the 19 to 24 range, there's like, a whole bunch of mix of everything and a lot more usage. And you can even see the hours over here. So this is kind of just a visualization in a way, like an infographic that's set up. And then so we kind of built on that, and we were like, let's go back to our interactive and let's create something where people can add themselves, right? And so we started introducing the features that are native on iOS and Android, screen time and whatnot. And we asked people actually to end up drawing on the poster in a very similar setup. And what you end up at an exhibition is with like hundreds of lines, and you start seeing in real time, like, this snapshot, what this looks like. But again, what it does, it opens the idea of like, do I even want to look at screen time? Why would I ever do that? A lot of people are like, yeah, I know, I might know about it, but do I, is it important to me or not? And so we start that conversation basically. So here it is again. These are the both Android and iPhone, and the instructions and how to do it. And yeah, it's been a great success, I would say. A lot of people enjoyed that interactive element. And then we go to the apps, right? So we have like these digital kind of apps. I mean, these are web based. So this was from a little while ago. I think we have 3 or 4 more languages now for like all of the content you just saw for the misinformation. This one's called Fake or Real, and it was about basically going in and really addressing like this infodemic that's been happening. I mean, even before the edition was complete, before even Corona started, we had been finalizing this. And then it hit right with Corona. So everyone's like, whoa, we really want this. It was perfect time. So this, for example, it's talking about memes, And then what you do is you basically check which one is spreading, what does it say? Which of these items are spreading misinformation? What is misleading? You know, initially we were like, we don't want to call this fake news, right? I mean, there's a problem with this term, right? Actually, we introduced this in the app at the very beginning, and we even question it, and it's in part of our workshops that we do as well. But this is kind of set up where you go through a series of like 10 different questions, and you kind of start saying, you know, is this misinformation? Is this not? And then you get this kind of this description in the end. We introduce things like, you know, Extinction Rebellion efforts to create deep fakes for the Belgian Prime Minister. But in the end, they say this is a hack, right? And so is that misinformation or not? So we start again this conversation as well. And then we, you know, then we see like other like leaders like the ex-US president or like the ex-Italian prime minister, you know, spouting off a bunch of nonsense. You know, what do you think about that? Or we introduce something like cheap fakes, right? So this is a video that went viral. Nancy Pelosi, and they just slowed down the video, made her look like she was drunk or whatever. And so we introduced these concepts through the game, right? And then we worked again with Density Design Group, and so they came up with another one which is more about image manipulation. And again, you go in there, there's a series of 10 questions, there's there's this timeline or a timer, so you know, you kind of like, you have the pressure to decide really quick, and has a similar setup where you also like get an explanation in the end. So there's an example of like, after you answer a question that this is a manipulated image, this had the blah blah blah, it went viral. It's actually, the origin is you know, in this case South Africa. So it looks at cropped images, manipulated images, all different kinds of way to spread information. Then we have this one, which is basically giving you details on how to create basically a deep fake. That's very cool as well. It's not interactive, but it kind of, it's you know, it's got these videos, very famous viral videos by the group who designed it. Again, Density Design, and it's been very popular as well. And it can get technical if you want, so you have that choice. And then usually alongside of it, we have all these different animations. And yeah, man. See, okay, here's another one that's really cool, which is basically along these lines of like the Cambridge Analytica. So this is out of our data and politics team, where they did this interactive tool where you basically answer all these questions, and then it gives you a score. Are you open, conscientious, extrovert, agreeable, or neurotic, which is the 5 main profiles that these companies work with in order to micro target these political ads to you, or even regular ads. And so basically, after you answer this question, it decides what you are and feeds you a lot of advertisements that you would have received if you are actually on your own machine. So this is one of like the ads that you would have got if you're neuroticism is your most defining characteristic. And we relate this to a lot of the political advertisements. This came out in 2018 and 2019, so it has a lot of US centric. We always wanted to localize this, like we want with a lot of our content, but it gets really, really difficult to do this worldwide. So other things like the data a day with the terms and conditions, this gets a lot easier, but not so much for these other tools. And then we have, of course, again, data detox, which looks at your privacy, your security, and your well-being. And we had one for misinformation as well, but it's growing. I mean, there's this whole section on, you know, health and hoax, or we have things on, we have one designed just for youth, for example. Okay, go through this. All the different translations. This is kind of what it looks like in the community setup. So 4 different apps, a bunch of different posters. There's a monitor playing animations on loop, things that are talking about. Actually, the latest ones relate to a lot of the posters that we're sharing. And then, so there's another pictures of like people. This is in Leave Ukraine. Yeah, and this is again like the data detox youth. So we're targeting that age group now with a brand new project basically called Youth in Technology, and co-developing works with them in order to basically give the youth a voice in front of these big tech companies, in front of schools, in front of governments where they didn't have before, and doing it in the creative way of the classroom. So this is really exciting, actually, project as well. And we already got started, and it's just already like a huge hit. A lot of people are looking for this all over the world. Yeah, so this is, I think, kind of what I got for now for this one. And there is another thing. Oh yeah, I just wanted to show you the virtual. So if you ever want to look at, let's see. I'm gonna stop this and I'm gonna share. Actually, I'll just put it in the chat right here. Let's see, everyone. This. So basically, we did a virtual edition of the Glassroom for the first time. So I mentioned before, like it's really kind of super cool to be talking in a physical space about all of these online topics. And of course, with Corona, this had to change. We had to adapt. And so after 5 years of working on the Glassroom, nothing was ever online. Like a lot of things that you saw here was just because someone from Tactical Tech presented them, but you rarely, I mean, you could see stuff on social media, of course, but we didn't have any go-to place online. We had a website, just as you saw it, without really anything except more than a description of the different exhibits that have taken place. But with this link, you can actually experience now the latest edition, the misinformation edition. So we had a first version that was done immediately, like in April 2020, in order, because we foresaw all the challenges. And then we did this one later on, which we used, which will be in use for the larger exhibitions as well, like in the Netherlands this month and in November. So yeah, so you can get in here and then, you know, you can play around, you can see all of the different pieces in detail, which again, like I said, is for the first time. So this has been very cool, but yeah, I mean, this is it in general. And we were hoping then, like, so I used to have I don't know how close you're connected to the Fab Lab community, but I had started in, so I'm from Egypt, and when I was living in Cairo, 2012, I co-founded one of Egypt's first Fab Labs, and so it was called Ice Cairo. It was not Fab Lab Egypt. That's a different one. And yeah, and basically I got introduced to the community, and I realized kind of the culture of Fab Labs, or just even maker spaces in general. And after joining Tactical Tech, I was like, this would be really great if we can kind of partner with this community in order to bring these topics to their communities. And so we got in touch with people, the Fab Lab people in Barcelona and Montreal, and we were like, what do you think? And they said, okay, let's do that. Let's see who's interested. But I think we missed this window here today where we can get this, there's, you know, an open call. So I hope we can do that and basically set up in Fab Labs and do this pop-up exhibition all over the world in the next few weeks here. So that's kind of the goal of today. But yeah, but you were here in Berlin, and I'm wondering, like, if from what I saw or anything, is there anything like you're thinking about from like anything that you saw, or any kind of collaboration or anything?
Yeah, so I'm not that connected to the whole Fab Lab. I'm kind of I've always been kind of not as static, but critical of how they had a kind of turn from a more open perspective, maybe, I don't know, 13 years ago, and became this kind of replicating machine for a sort of entrepreneurial mindset. But I think my interest in this conversation comes from another direction. So just quickly, my PhD research is about waste prevention in smart cities, about, you know, reuse, repair, and community practices. But as I mentioned earlier, I have other parallel projects, and one of them that I guess may have a very interesting connection is that, well, last year, a researcher from the UK asked me to help reshape a project because he had some money to organize a seminar in Brazil about comics and critical data. And but because of COVID, it wouldn't be feasible. So we decided to provide, because the idea from him was to inform a group of Brazilian artists, comics artists, about the situation related to digital inclusion and digital literacy. And what we decided was to interview a group of people, to conduct very short interviews with people who have been active in community-based digital inclusion projects in Brazil. So we just sent out, this interview request, actually these people to make their own short videos about current issues on digital inclusion, because most of them were involved with projects that back in the day, maybe 20 years ago, would create, computer rooms in different communities and invite people. But the idea with this study was to have them discuss what are the current issues, because it's not only about having people sit down in front of a computer, but everybody has mobile devices, and how does that impact, how much the access to equipment, connectivity, and critical information impacts that. And the result was very interesting. We just finished I have invited an organization from Brazil to work on compiling the interviews in the report. And based on that, we applied for a little more funding, and we will be organizing two things. One of them is with these artists. They are working on a video game, or kind of video game is like 1980s language, right? They're working in some kind of interactive online game to provide this sort of critical perspective. And we are actually, at the moment brainstorming how to go about that. So these artists are working on a script, and it will be possibly a kind of web-based game, very easy, navigation, but with graphics from this amazing illustrator from Brazil. And the other outcome of this project, or the other follow-up to this initial study, will be a repository. So this is the longest version. We don't have a short name for it, but it will be a repository of online education materials about policies for digital inclusion, with a focus on community-based digital inclusion. So if it's not about, creating telecenters as we used to have in Brazil some years ago, what should we do about that? So the idea is to provide resources for municipalities and for NGOs that want to create their own digital inclusion projects and digital literacy projects, and bring in these kinds of contemporary discussions. And specifically, what I would be interested in exchanging and perhaps cooperating with Tactical Tech is how to approach all of these issues about privacy and security and trust, and how do we approach these things from this kind of policy perspective. So I think that there will be some very interesting conversations, but at the moment I'm not particularly related to any Fab Labs.
Okay.
But there is this scenario in Brazil, because we've been very active, and I was part of that context, starting in 2002, 2003. And myself and others have been involved with a number of projects that were then funded by the Brazilian government that wanted to create possibilities for communities to use technologies in a different way. And the idea is that even though all of these projects were kind of underfunded and sabotaged for the last few years because of the change in political tides in Brazil, these people are still interested in pushing their projects forward and in interacting. So this interview that we did with all of them was one of the opportunities for them to interact with each other. And some of them really expressed that they were thankful to have this opportunity, because it would be the kind of conversation that we would have on coffee breaks and seminars. And these seminars don't happen anymore in Brazil. So it was a kind of interesting start of something new that could possibly scale as things change back to normal in Brazil, at least. And we even see, the possibility of helping build or regenerate some of these possibilities based on these studies that we're working.
No,
So
that's super cool, Felipe, because, well, first, just to clarify, like, even though we're approaching Fab Lab Network now, we're actually working with everybody. I mean, this is just access to the network, trying to get it. So you put it in a nice way. I mean, we can put it in a nicer way or a similar way, but one of the major reasons I am going into the Fab Lab Network is because of what you mentioned earlier. Like, I didn't know the change. I didn't realize it was so open before. So I'm talking about 2012, and what I saw was that there's this, very liberal approach, or even neoliberal approach to their thinking with regards to the communities and stakeholders that they're dealing with. And for me, this was, even though I was, it was a co-working space that I set up, but it was more about the green economy, and it was more about, it wasn't about, get your tech out there and exit to Facebook, right? It was more about, it's 2012, we just had a revolution, how are we going to address certain aspects of the revolution, like lack of water, lack of energy, etc. And how are we going to do this using new tools that we're still not sure how to use them, what to use them for. And so this was the attempt by, getting our machines and, talking about rapid prototyping. But slowly, surely, I realized, as a community, there's, maybe a different interest. And this is why I want to come with the Glassroom, a lot of tactical text content to these communities, because I think it's super relevant and they just don't have access to it in this kind of way. And it might resonate and just might work. But what I want to say is that not just Fab Lab Network, what you're doing is super, super interesting. Maybe Luis already told you that we've done a whole bunch of work with people in Brazil, right? Like in people in Sao Paulo and Rio and other places as well. And yeah, and this idea of already getting a sense of what people are on people's mind, what's the most important, this first step that you've taken is really cool, because I mean, I'm a little bit optimistic about Brazil after a few years of like, whoa, this is really intense. And so what you might be doing is setting up for like, hopefully something very positive that then this work can continue, much like around the 2002, 2003 time. Anyways, what I want to say is we're just starting a new project with a partner, Swedish, who fund us to work in a lot of places, including Brazil. And there might be something there, so let's definitely keep the conversation going. Let's even meet up in Berlin when you get a chance, and we can meet up with Louise and just go for a coffee or something, just hang out a bit and talk about this in more detail, because I think there's a lot there. And personally, so Louise, obviously she's into working in Brazil, and I'm big time into working in Brazil too, not just because of the existing interested communities that look at digital inclusion or critical thinking. I mean, there's already an established community there, quite, I would say, advanced in comparison to a lot of other places. It has the perspective of South America as well, which not only is race-based or gender-based kind of awareness, but also indigenous, for example. So like we worked with organization in the north. I don't think it was Recife, but it was in this, you know, it was the Northeast, and they were like, you know, they came to us and challenged some of the work we were doing, because we never even thought about this demographic when we, you know, we went to different places. So, anyways, so this is some of the major reasons I want to go to Brazil, or I mean, I want to go either way, but like with the glass room. So there's a lot of potential, I think, coming up, and I think we should definitely continue the conversation. Um, yeah, so I don't know. I think she already has your contact or your email, or she
Yeah.
does, right?
Let me just ask you. I think we may have met
Oh
on
yeah.
Republica
Oh
13.
yeah. Yeah.
Were
I
you?
was there. I
Yeah,
was
cool.
hanging out with the
So
Brazilians.
yeah, so I was one of them with
Oh, yeah, with
Georgia and
Shaw.
Daniel. Yeah,
Oh, wait, that guy's
yeah,
crazy,
yeah,
man.
yeah.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
it was a
these are,
lot. Yeah,
go ahead. Yeah.
and maybe was it you? So I just saw your name now. So was with you that Gabi Agostini put me in touch some months ago,
Yeah,
or no? Okay.
maybe. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm good friends with Gabi. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah,
Nice.
that's crazy. Small world, huh?
Yeah.
Small,
Yeah.
small
Berlin.
Berlin world. And
Yeah.
yeah, no,
Berlin
this
is a
was
nice.
these are my entry points to Brazil. So like before that, I mean, as an Egyptian, I was very fascinated with Brazil and just like kind of like on a political level and just like the past 70 years and just looking at
Mhm.
some parallels. And then 2013, Gabi and Georgia and then all the friends that they brought as well, and you know, people
Mhm.
working in this space as well, you know, they opened up my eyes to a whole nother world, right? And so for me, since then, I've just kind of been like Brazil, like obsession with Brazil.
Oh,
So
nice. So let's find
yeah.
ways to make that work. I just sent you here well, this is just a YouTube playlist with the videos that we did, but we just got them translated to English.
Ah,
But it's a
nice.
kind of massive, it's like maybe 300 minutes of videos. But we have the report that will be a PDF, but we're not translating it yet. We're just trying to get funding for that. But the idea is to make that, based on that, on those videos and report, to start working on this kind of educational resource, as well as this game that will eventually be possible. So I guess there will be some possibilities, and we could even, yeah, I don't know. I'll have a look at what are your the things that you have that are interactive and kind of gamified, and now send the artists to have a look, because I guess the context and the kind of critical take on technologies will be very useful for them, because they're trying
Definitely.
to create a storyline, a more of a, to be appealing for youngsters, particularly in communities, and to make them aware of all of these issues. So
Right.
to turn that into a kind of educational resource.
I
But
see.
I think this kind of approach would be interesting for them too.
Well, I'll tell you what, actually, Felipe, we have this other project that somehow related to the data detox kit, and it's this storyline that you go through, and it's kind of a game as well. And you just, you know, you press this and you press this. We worked with Goethe on this just in the past 6 months, and it just got released, or at least one module is now released, I think. But anyways, released to that community, maybe not sure public or not. The idea is it was instead of like an instructional toolkit, it's very educational instructional, but with that storyline aspect. So there's, you know, these illustrations, they walk around, you end up having to ask questions and or answer
Mhm.
questions in different formats. And I'm wondering if this is something that as a collective that might be interesting because of this educational aspect. There's a lot of translation into it. I'd have to even see if we have, because it got really technical, and Goethe supplied a very expensive, basically back end person to do the website. And I'll ask around and see if that's something that could also be translated, for example, and edited for this communities. And I see you guys are working. I mean, there's Procumum, Lab Coco, Chirua. I mean, this is what a great mix
Yeah,
of people you have.
we had this. We were aware of trying to include most of the regions, or at least the regions that are not usually featured in the discussion about technology in Brazil. So
Nice.
there are people who have been active. Actually, there's nobody from the South region in Brazil, but yeah, that's okay.
Do you know this guy? We've been working with this guy, Casa Hacker, but I guess he's not from the South either. I don't know if you know this space, Casa Hacker.
In Campinas,
Yeah, exactly.
I have never been there, but I did my master's in Campinas, so we have lots of people in common, lots of contacts in common.
Cool.
So yeah, let's. I'll just send you my email here, but Lou has it too. So let's keep in touch, and I guess we could evolve that into some kind of partnership with these partners in Brazil and this university in the UK, which is really interested in pushing this idea of innovation for social change and how to use creative technologies for that.
Perfect. Sounds very cool. And like I said, like we just got awarded a project, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically going to be in Louise's and I decision making which partners we were going to work with. And so we already talked about it last year. Like we're definitely going to be working with our Brazilian partners. She brought in Chidua, but of course, like, I mean, I know Ricardo like personally for like many years now. I know Georgia. I know Rodrigo. So like and then Chile was the one who I was talking about with digital inclusion with the indigenous communities. So and then I don't know if Luis even mentioned the Goethe that took place, an event with Goethe in Sao Paulo, and they brought in like a lot of academics from Brazil, but also like different areas. I think there was Argentina and maybe another country, or maybe it's just Argentina and Brazil. And a lot of these people are like well established working in the academic area in this sector, but like also like I believe there's a lot of potential for collaborations. What I want to say, I see already this Coletivo Neos. This is already like super amazing people. So like if this is already established, I think it's definitely something to build on. We have some time. This new project is a 3-year-long project. So we're still establishing what kind of approaches we're going to be using. All we've established right now is the themes. And just to let you know very quickly, it's even though like the tactical tech is closely associated with privacy and security, and we always bring those into the conversation, but we're looking more also at like quote unquote the influence industry, not in the electoral campaign sense, but more of like how are all of these things happening, not just misinformation, for example, of what's a problem with fake news, is this a misleading, or is what's a deep fake, more about how the mechanics work as well. So diving in a little bit deeper. And again, like I said, there's youth and technology. That's going to be a huge one. And the last one is we're calling it tech in crisis. So things related to the environment, related to the pandemic, and the different tech that's emerged as a reaction or as a result of all of these events in the world, supposedly, of course, to help. But then, how can we be critical about this? And especially in places like, for example, like, well, unfortunately all over the world right now, but of course there's the Amazon, Brazil, and things like this. So I think there's a lot to talk about, and I think we can get started pretty soon. Actually, we have like I said, this major or this large glass room that's taking place in Holland on the 19th, and so after it begins we'll be a little bit more free.
Yeah, so let's talk that over coffee or beer somewhere here.
Really excited to do that. It's really nice to meet you, Felipe.
And just I forgot to mention, but my PhD is also related to Mozilla. Actually, this is the reason that I am in Berlin. I was supposed to be working at the Mozilla office, but just because of
Kreuzberg? The one in Kreuzberg?
But it's closed for the foreseeable future. So I'll be working from Motion Lab for the time being. Let's see what happens.
I know, we know the guys in Motion Lab. I guess it's kind of this gig connection too. What's his name? Ari or
Yeah, no, that's so. Yeah, I'm new there, and there's like hundreds of people, so I don't know the founders yet, but
Okay, so no, he knows Georgia, he knows Ricardo, he knows this
nice.
South Asian guy, I think from not Nepal, Sri Lanka. He's from Sri Lanka, yeah.
Hmm.
Really nice guy. I can make an introduction even if you want. I don't know. Are you set up in Motion Lab? Everything's okay there?
Yeah, I'm actually now I have paused for holidays because I'm with two kids here, but
Okay.
I'll be resuming my membership, I guess, next week or so.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
So yeah,
Sounds
let's
good,
keep in
man.
touch. Yeah,
Yes, absolutely. All right.
cool.
Have a good one.
See you around. Bye.
See you. Bye bye.